Welcome back for another thrilling weekend for the BRSCC Mazda SuperCup. You join me here in the gorgeous countryside of Cheshire at Oulton Park. Coming into this weekend, we see Luke Herbert and Jack Harding joint first position in the standings. It's practically unheard of for this championship. Luke Herbert, as we all know, is the 2017 championship winner, and he's determined to retain his championship winning this year. However, first blood this weekend goes to Jack Harding, putting it on pole not just for race 1, but for race 2. So we're going to jump straight into all the action and hand it over to Andy McEwan.
Yeah, thanks, Lyndsay. Well, the championship could not be more finely balanced, and it's Jack Harding and Luke Herbert who share the front row of the grid for what should be a cracking race. Aidan Hills and James Blake Baldwin make up row 2, ahead of Johnny Greensmith and Simon Baldwin. Carl Garnett and Will Stacey on row 4 with Gary Townsend and James Harris rounding out the top 10. Then it's Will Stevenson and James Kell, Christian White and Colin Bysouth, with Nick Dunn and Sam Tatler next in line. Then it's Alec Livesley and Tom Parker. Row 10 for Bradley Kent and George Grant, ahead of Darren Stapleton, Nick Rutter, Mark Swarbrick and Duncan Harris to round out the 24-car grid. So, tied on points, sharing the front row of the grid together, and with James Blake Baldwin's exclusion from last time out at Castle Combe, it is a two-horse race for the title as the lights go away. The grid launches down towards Old Hall Corner for the first time, and it's Luke Herbert who has his nose in front down towards Old Hall Corner and takes the race lead, and that was a decisive move across the nose of his big championship rival to take the lead into turn number 1. A couple of cars running wide further back, one of which was Colin Bysouth, who was way out into the weeds, but should be able to rejoin in the mid-pack. So it's Herbert from Harding from Hills, the top 3, the 3 H's at the front of the field as they make their way through Cascades for the first time. Johnny Greensmith is there in 4th ahead of the 2 Baldwins. James Blake Baldwin, I think, is ahead of Simon Baldwin. Yes, he is, number 4 ahead of number 16. The 2 brothers making their way down towards Island Bend together in this 20-minute encounter to kick off the day's action here at Oulton Park. And it's Johnny Greensmith locking up and a car off wide. That's James Harris. James Harris way wide onto the grass, through the gravel, and finds a handy little cut through between the tyres to actually rejoin without any damage. Leaders back out of shell, up towards Britain's for the first time of asking though. And well, Luke Herbert, how significant could that start prove to be? Because we know it is not easy to overtake here at Oulton Park. It's a tight circuit, it's narrow, it's undulating. There are places where you can overtake, but it's not that easy, and it's relatively easy to defend a position. Aidan Hills is busy defending, trying to hold on to 3rd place there from Johnny Greensmith behind him. Johnny Greensmith, the Knock Hill race winner, but hasn't had a particularly good time of it through the middle portion of the year. He's still 3rd in the points, but some way back now from the leading 2. On board with Johnny as he makes his way up and over Clay Hill in the slipstream now, trying to find a way past Aidan Hills, who is continuing this remarkable streak of podium finishes. Every one of the 5 race meetings we've had so far this year, Aidan Hills has had 1 podium finish, but only the 1, and it's never yet been a race victory. He's had some 2nd place finishes, some 3rd place finishes, but not yet won a round of the championship. And Aidan Hills running 3rd place in this one as well, looking to try and continue the podium streak, but if possible, make his way onto the top step of the podium. That would be nice. He's struggling a bit at the moment though, and he seems to be the cork in the bottle with Johnny Greensmith and James Blake Baldwin all over him, heading down towards Old Hall Corner. Greensmith to the outside line, Blake Baldwin trying to take advantage of this and maybe got the inside as well. Oh, this could get messy. Up the inside goes Blake Baldwin. Greensmith is going to find himself on the grass, and James Blake Baldwin needs no second invitation to go through the open door and takes over 4th position. So the leading 2 taking advantage of this now to escape up the road, but the fight for 3rd continuing to intensify, with Aidan Hills seemingly struggling for pace here in the early stages. And now with James Blake Baldwin, who may have waved goodbye to his realistic chances of winning the championship, but can still get a few good results before the end of the year. There are still 9 more races left in this championship, 3 here at Oulton Park, 3 at Croft and 3 at Donington Park. Carl Garnett's had an off somewhere. That's down at Old Hall Corner, I think, that the number 19 car's gone off into the barriers. That may require a safety car. We'll have to wait and see. But yes, James Blake Baldwin probably can't win the title, but he could still get a 2nd or a 3rd, or maybe a 3rd place in the championship realistically is his target now. The AK Automotive machine of Carl Garnett rejoins the road, and so therefore hopefully no need for a safety car as the leading 2 continuing to detach themselves now from the lead bunch. They turn into Hislop's Corner for the 2nd time. Jack Harding in the number 43 car, inspired by the legendary NASCAR driver Richard Petty, the most successful NASCAR driver in history with 200 race wins. Jack Harding not quite on 200 race wins himself, but he has won 4 races this season. So too, surprisingly, has Luke Herbert. They really have been inseparable all year, and neither driver spending much time off the podium. They have been the class of the field, and James Blake Baldwin with them, it must be said. But James, after his contact with Steve Roberts last time out, an exclusion from a race, and you can't count that as one of your dropped scores, so that effectively put him out of title contention, leaving just the two to debate the outcome of the 2018 championship. So the leaders across the start-finish line then, down towards Old Hall Corner again, and Jack Harding applying the pressure, but just can't quite find a way through for the time being. James Blake Baldwin, though, really applying the pressure to Aidan Hills, trying to take third place away as they go through Old Hall Corner. Aidan, though, is a very good defensive driver, and James Blake Baldwin, a very good attacking driver, so this is a bit like a rock and a hard place, isn't it? James Blake Baldwin isn't going to say no. He will want to take third place, but Aidan Hills is not going to let him through all that easily. Down the Lakeside Straight they go again. Blake Baldwin with a much better exit from the corner. Aidan Hills knows where to place the car, drives down the middle of the road initially, and then back onto the racing line so as to get the best possible entrance speed, into Island Bend. Over that big bump under the braking into the banked hairpin at Shell, and look at the gap that the top two have pulled away after just 2.5 laps of running, and Luke Herbert and Jack Harding taking full advantage of the battling going on behind them to pull out a margin of lead that is now several seconds already over Aidan Hills in third, Blake Baldwin fourth, Simon Baldwin still fifth ahead of Johnny Greensmith in sixth position. Then it's Will Stacey, the Silverstone winner, starting to make a bit of a return to form here, well inside the top 10. Will Stacey made his return to the championship at Rockingham, where he scored a best finish, just looking back through those results, I think, of 7th position, which is strangely enough where he's running now. And then Will Stacey was not with us, I believe, last time out at Castle Combe, though he wasn't, so he's not doing a full season. Of course, he won that first race at Silverstone before being taken out in someone else's accident in the very next race and doing a lot of damage to the car. On board with Colin Bysouth now, the man we saw going grass tracking coming out of Old Hall Corner at the start of the race, but he's rejoined and is chasing down the cars in front as he goes through the double apex right-hander at Druids. That was Will Stevenson, I think, the yellow number 62 car. Bit of paint traded maybe there between the leading two. Jack Harding starting to get a little bit frustrated. He can feel that he's a bit quicker than Luke Herbert at this stage of the race, but just hasn't yet been able to work his way through. But it's early doors, and remember, Oulton Park, a bit of a different race format than we usually have in the MX-5 SuperCup. Traditionally, the race meetings take place over 2 days, with 1 race on the Saturday and 2 on the Sunday. So they have race 1 and qualifying on the same day, but then they have overnight on Saturday to fix the cars, make any setup adjustments that they need in preparation for the Sunday's races. Well, here at Oulton Park, everything is condensed into 1 day. So qualifying and 3 races. That's an hour and 20 minutes of track time condensed into just the 1 day. And so any little bit of damage that you sustain in this first race, it's not necessarily going to be the easiest of jobs to get it fixed in time for races 2 and 3 later on. So the drivers will have to be a little bit mindful of that as they try to make sure that they don't damage their cars too much. Of course, they don't want to damage their cars at all, ideally, but there is always the potential for a bit of damage when you've got 24 identical Mazda MX-5 sharing the circuit at any given time. But let's hope they can keep it nice and clean and keep their cars in one piece right the way down to the end of the day. On board again with Blake Baldwin as we go over the top of Hilltop down towards Hislops. Jack Harding still not able to find a way past Luke Herbert, despite the fact that he's applying the pressure at every turn. But as I say, at this early stage of the race, there's not much sense in doing a do-or-die manoeuvre to try and get the lead away just yet, although both of these drivers are well aware of the fact that every point matters, because when you're tied on championship points this deep into the season, we're now well into the second half of the year, then it's almost a given that it's going to go down to the very last race of the very last meeting of the year, and probably, given how evenly matched these two have been, the very last lap of the very last race of the season. So every point is going to be crucial. I really do see this as being a championship that could be decided by 1 or 2 points at the most. Down towards Lodge Corner they go. We're on board with now Johnny Greensmith, who is in behind Simon Baldwin. So this is for 5th position, and Simon Baldwin has just fallen away slightly from the leading 4, but Johnny Greensmith is trying to get alongside to come across the start-finish line. To the inside goes Johnny, but he's not. You can see there just how evenly matched the 2 cars are. Absolutely no advantage either way under acceleration, but on the brakes, Johnny Greensmith is brave enough to throw it up the inside and moves through into 5th position. But that was a great example there of the regulations and the rules at work. These cars all identical performance near enough, and that is what makes the racing so competitive. damage there actually to the back of Simon Baldwin's car, but of the undertray just flapping slightly loose as the leaders turn their way back through Island Bend, with Luke Herbert now starting to have to watch his mirrors a little bit more. He's driving a bit more defensively than he has been. Now Luke, I was speaking to him last night, and he was saying that his car at Castle Combe was significantly down on power. Add to that the fact that the tyre pressures went through the roof in the second race, and he really did endure quite a trying weekend. He had a third place in race 1 and a third place in race 2, but it was fourth on the road. He only sort of inherited that third place after Blake Baldwin's exclusion. But Luke Herbert lost points, of course, to Jack Harding that weekend, and so he wasn't best pleased with it. He took the car back to the garage afterwards. They did a full analysis, and they reckon they found a part of the car that was costing him straight line speed, and he cost himself straight line speed coming out of Knickerbrook Corner there. He was all out of shape going up Clay Hill, and that's a really important traction zone as well, because you're accelerating steeply uphill to one of the fastest parts of the circuit, and Luke is having to defend into Tridge, but again the car is getting a little bit sideways, and this is what we saw at Castle Combe. When the track temperatures went up, this car did not look quite as happy as some of his rivals, and right now his nearest rival in the race is his nearest rival in the championship, Jack Harding. He cannot afford to give away an inch to the number 43 car behind him. As we tick now through into the second half of the race, up and over Deers Leap they go again. Back down towards Old Hall Corner. Can Jack Harding have a go here? Well, Luke Herbert thinks that he might, because he's hugging the pit wall down the right-hand side of the road. Jack Harding thought about the late lunge up the inside. He started to get increasingly frustrated here, though, because their lap times are starting to drop now that Luke Herbert is driving a bit more defensively. So Luke Herbert starting to struggle slightly, on board with Aidan Hills here in third position. And is he still in third? Yes, he is. There's no sign of James Blake Baldwin in front of us, but there is a side of him alongside us. And James Blake Baldwin trying to go around the outside of Cascades. That's never going to work, and he ends up getting elbowed out onto the grass. Look at how rough the ride was there as he ran out onto the grass, and he will lose all of the momentum and possibly even have damaged the undertray of his car. Aidan Hills was not for letting him through. Unfortunately, it's not been a good few minutes for the Baldwins, because as James Blake Baldwin's been bouncing down the Lakeside Straight, Simon Baldwin, his stepbrother, is in the pit lane with some sort of a mechanical issue and seemingly out of the race. So everybody jumps up one position from 5th place onwards, or 4th place onwards at least. Sorry, 6th place onwards. I'll get it right in a minute. 6th place upwards may gain a place. But the leaders make their way over Clay Hill. And yes, back to my point about Luke Herbert, they reckon they found what it was that was costing him straight line speed last time out at Castle Combe. They've replaced the part, and the car certainly looks a lot more competitive here at Oulton Park than it did at Castle Combe. Well, that's a shame. That's Nick Dunn, who is off in the Clapham North liveried car. Clapham North, of course, and George Grant series sponsors. George Grant also in this race, running outside the top 15 at the moment, though, as the leaders head back down towards Lodge Corner. Certainly seems as though there's no disparity in straight line speed between these two now, so it does look as though Luke Herbert's got that car working as it should be. The trouble is, the effect of the slipstream in these cars means that you can never really escape, and Jack Harding, although it looks like he's significantly quicker than Luke Herbert at the moment, the truth of the matter probably is that if they were the other way round and Harding was leading Herbert, Jack would be feeling exactly the same sort of pressure, because as long as you're relatively evenly matched drivers, which we know these two are, in evenly matched cars, the slipstream is enough to keep you locked together for the entire duration of the race. We saw a car behind the barriers there down at Cascades. That was Darren Stapleton, who is therefore our second retirement of the race, although he actually retired, I believe, earlier on in the race. Leaders not fussed, not worried about that at all, because they are continuing to do battle at the head of the field, with Jack Harding continuing to be frustrated by the fact that Luke Herbert is continuing to lead the race, and there's nothing seemingly that Jack Harding can do about this. The AK Automotive squad have prepared a good car for Jack all year long. Had a little bit of an issue in a couple of qualifying sessions, hasn't he, really, which have maybe blighted his first races of the weekend, but he does have this knack for fighting back, and Castle Combe was certainly one of those examples where he just didn't qualify all that well, but was able to fight back to a 5th position and some valuable championship points. And then race 2, of course, went out and won the thing. So, although he was telling me at Castle Combe that one of the biggest problems was they put a new set of tyres on, and rather than make the car quicker, it made it slower. Now here's someone who's going quicker. It's Johnny Greensmith, who's now latched onto the rear bumper of James Blake Baldwin's car, which is falling apart around him after that grassy moment he had at Cascades. In turn, though, James has been able to close back in on Aidan Hills in 3rd place. So it's now a 3-way fight for the bottom step of the podium. And Aidan Hills, who we know is pretty good at finishing on the podium, but he's gone toe-to-toe with James Blake Baldwin a few times this year and not necessarily come off bets. James Blake Baldwin, I seem to remember getting past Aidan for the lead at Brands Hatch earlier on this year, but now James Blake Baldwin, that's not like James at all. He left a gap up the inside for Johnny Greensmith, and Johnny Greensmith was straight in there, and he's going to try and move through into 4th position. They're still side by side though over Deers lead towards the start-finish line. Blake Baldwin's nose will be ahead at the timing line, but Greensmith has the inside line for Old Hall, and I think is going to go through. Yes, he does. So James Blake Baldwin, in trying to gain a place there on Aidan Hills, loses a place to Johnny Greensmith, and that is so often the way, isn't it? Because if you're stuck in the middle, you're attacking and defending at the same time. You want to focus all of your attention on getting past the driver in front, but of course if you go for a move that doesn't work, or you try a different line through a corner, you risk leaving the door open, and the car behind will be straight in the gap in a flash, and that's exactly what happened there to James Blake Baldwin. He took the wide line into Lodge Corner, trying to tee up Aidan Hills on the exit of the turn, but that left the door open, unfortunately, for Johnny Greensmith to come through, and that's James Harris, bang, into the tyre wall. Now that was a big old hit up at Lodge Corner. The number 37 car selects reverse gear. Now that's the wreck-to-cell barriers at work there, because they didn't do all that much damage to the car. But James Harris, that was his second grassy moment of the race. Remember, he went off on the first lap up at Island Bend and avoided the tyre wall. Not quite so lucky this time around, but at least the car doesn't seem too badly damaged. He may even be able to rejoin and finish the race. Here comes this fight for third, and all of a sudden it's Johnny Greensmith who's having a really competitive day so far here at Oulton Park. I know we're only 3/4 of the way through the first race, but Johnny Greensmith is looking very quick indeed in this race. Out of Nickelbrook he goes, up and over Clay Hill. Still feeling the pressure though from James Blake Baldwin behind him. On board with James now, who makes his way past the water tower, that left-hand kink before Druids, the double apex right-hander, where you've got to be so careful. You can see the cars moving around there underneath the trees, very little runoff area, but if you get a good exit you can attack down towards Lodge Corner, and that's what Johnny Greensmith's doing, but he has to be careful. This is how he gained the place on James Blake Baldwin a lap ago, by seeing James go to the outside at Lodge and leaving the door open, and that's exactly what Johnny Greensmith has done. So Blake Baldwin, well, he learned from his mistakes there, and he read that situation really well, and he is now back up the inside of Johnny Greensmith, who will be kicking himself at the wheel of the number 2 car, because that was his trick from a lap ago. James Blake Baldwin now, the student becomes the master and gets the place straight back a lap later. So Greensmith back down to 5th again, and Blake Baldwin back up into 4th and back onto terms now with Aidan Hills as they round Cascades for what should be the penultimate time of asking, with just over 3 minutes left on the clock. And James Blake Baldwin is heading through Island Bend now, right on the tail of Aidan Hills, but Aidan has not yet been shaken from this 3rd place. Can James Blake Baldwin finally break through the defences and get away through? He's up the inside down towards the Britain chicane, but this is the outside for the entry to the chicane. Oh, very late on the brakes, Aidan Hills, and he gets across in front. Well, that was a unique place to try and overtake. I've not seen somebody make that move stick before, well, not very often anyway, not on an identical car. And James Blake Baldwin gave it a good go, but it didn't really work. So now back down towards Hislops again, where Aidan Hills, clearly not quite as quick as James, but is really getting his elbows out, and he's filling the road masterfully without making any sudden movements, without driving around the inside of the track. He's just covering where he needs to, and then if ever Blake Baldwin gets close enough to really attack and get alongside, Aidan just fights straight back. Leaders make their way back out of Druids again, and these two have just been sort of following each other around really for the whole race. We're about to start the final lap though, and Jack Harding, if he's got any ideas of getting past Luke Herbert, will need to start building something up now, because he is running out of time. If they finish as they are now, he will lose 2 points to Luke Herbert, except Jack Harding has set the fastest lap of the race, so actually that will redress the situation, so there won't be any real change in the points after this race. But of course if Harding could win, then he would take 2 points out of Luke Herbert, so regardless of what happens, he's not going to lose the championship lead, but he could extend the championship lead if he gets past. Here's the fight for 3rd place. Look how far back they are. They're only just going through Old Hall Corner now. They were 11 seconds behind the leaders at the start of this final lap. And Will Stacey, now where's Johnny Greensmith gone? Johnny Greensmith, I believe, has pulled into the pit lane. So Johnny Greensmith from the top 5 out of the race at the start of the final lap. So that's real drama for one of our front runners. But our top 2, the real front runners, are up at Shell for the final time. time, and Jack Harding forcing Luke Herbert to defend. There is Johnny Greensmith. He is in the pit lane and out of the race, and that's heartbreaking for Johnny, just as he was having one of his best races for several rounds, really. He won that race, the reverse grid race at Knock Hill earlier on in the season, but has never really been able to replicate that ever since. He's had a couple of podiums here and there, but really Rockingham was a bit of a disastrous weekend, and Castle Coombe wasn't much better, with a 5th and a 6th place finish that weekend. And here he is starting this weekend off with a non-finish. That is terrible look for Johnny Greensmith. Leaders, though, are coming back through Knickerbrook Corner again, and Luke Herbert is now just 2 corners away from his 5th race victory of the year. And for Jack Harding, it will be a bit of a disappointing one, because remember, he started on the pole position. He out-qualified Luke Herbert, albeit only by a few tenths of a second, but still, he would have been expecting that he had the pace to win this race. Arguably, he has had the pace to win it, but it was all about the start, and Luke Herbert got off the line better, and now just has to defend into and through the final corner, but Jack Harding goes for it. Oh, the door is slammed in his face, and Luke Herbert, I don't think he expected Jack to come from that far behind, and Jack very nearly made it stick, but it's not going to work. Luke Herbert is going to take win number 5 of the season, and that is a really significant win, not just in the points, but psychologically over Jack Harding as well. Jack comes home in second, just 3 tenths back, with Aidan Hills back on the podium again, his 6th podium of the year. It's James Blake Baldwin 4th, Will Stacey comes home in 5th, ahead of Gary Townsend, Sam Tatler, Will Stevenson, Colin Bysouth, and Christian White rounding out the top 10. We got 21 of the 24 starters to the finish. Johnny Greensmith, a late non-finisher, Simon Baldwin in the pits as well, and Darren Stapleton pulled off at the side of the road on lap 2.
Luke, you've come away first, but Jack still managed to get fastest lap.
I know, you know, Jack showed that he had the true pace on track. So I knew my only chance to win that race was to get him off the line, which thank God I did. You know, I had probably my best start I've ever done. And yeah, it's just managed. It's so easy to defend. You know, just every corner I can control the pace, make it difficult for him to get the run on to the next corner. So. Yeah, so it was a good race, but like I say, if I was going to race anyone, it's going to be Jack, because we've had clean races all year. But yeah, like you say, you got the fastest lap, so we've both got 100 points out of the race, so we're still dead level in the championship.
Brilliant. So obviously the temperatures are starting to heat up a bit. Have you got any more ideas for this afternoon?
Yeah, I mean, we went the wrong way actually with tyres. Our tyre pressures came in too low, so we might have to bring them up, which is the opposite of what you do in the heat. So we'll see. You know, try and do a few tweaks, but I think again it's going to have to be my start that will get me the win, if at all. So we'll see.
Fantastic. Well, congratulations, Luke.
Thank you very much.
Jack, firstly, congratulations. You started on pole, you came second, but you did manage to get fastest lap.
Yeah, so that brings us back level on points, luckily, so it's almost like we've both won that race. So yeah, damage limitation, but it's key to starting pole around here, and it's key to leading because you can just defend so easy. So I thought I'd got it nailed with 2 pole laps in qualifying, but yeah, just fluffed the start a little bit. So hopefully next race we'll be able to get off the line and hold the lead this time.
Now, Luke did manage to get you off the line here. Have you got more of an idea of how to defend him next time?
Just need to get a better start. If I can just get off the line, then I'll be fine. We had plenty enough pace. I think we'd sort of drive away, hopefully, if we get in the lead. So that's the plan. We just need to get off the line and see what we can do. And then the last race is reverse, so that's just going to be all to play for as well. So it's going to be fun.
Brilliant. Well, congratulations again from us.
Thank you very much. Cheers.
Aidan, well done for that. You started third, you finished third. You've got to be happy.
Yeah, it was all right. We changed the tyres from qualifying to the race, and it was a mistake, really, by mine and my dad's decision. It just didn't work from lap 1, and I knew it was going to be difficult. Obviously, we got a good start, but couldn't go anywhere because it's a short run to turn 1, and I was in third, and then it was a case of just keeping the rest behind me. I knew the 2 in front had a lot of pace, so that was that. Yeah, just come home and keep it in third.
So do you find defending on this track any particular difficulties?
I mean, defending around here is all right because it's quite tight, but defending from James Blake Baldwin is never easy. So yeah, it was hard work all race. You know, I was just looking in my mirrors, which isn't a nice feeling at all. So we'll put the tyres back on for race 2, and hopefully we'll be a bit better.
Fantastic. We'll look forward to seeing you, Aidan.
Thank you very much. Cheers.